The signal came through during third shift, when most of the galaxy was quiet and still. Station operator Velix was monitoring the deep space channels when the transmission broke through. At first, it was just static and broken words. Then the voice became clear, and Velix's 4 hearts froze in his chest. This is Research Station Korath 7. We are under attack. Repeat. We are under attack. Multiple hostile ships. They're cutting through our shields. Please. Someone. Anyone. The voice belonged to a Velan scientist. Velix knew the species well. Velans were gentle people, covered in soft silver fur, with large eyes that seemed to hold endless kindness. They were doctors and researchers, philosophers and artists. They had no military, no weapons, no way to defend themselves. The galaxy loved them for their peaceful nature. The transmission continued. In the background, Velix could hear explosions, screams, the sound of metal tearing apart. They're inside the station. They're killing everyone. Please, we have children here. The younglings came to visit their parents for the festival. They're just babies. Please, someone help us. Velix's hands shook as he routed the signal to the Galactic Council emergency channel. Within minutes, the transmission was playing in council chambers across a dozen worlds. Council Representative Morath of the Zenthari Empire listened with his arms crossed. His species were warriors, proud and strong. But even warriors had rules. You didn't attack research stations. You didn't kill children. The signal originates from Korath 7, an aide reported. It's an ice moon in the outer reaches. The station there studies crystalline life forms. 43 Velan scientists are stationed there. 15 younglings were visiting for the Harmony Festival. Who is attacking them? Morath demanded. Scanning the ship signatures now, sir. It appears to be... Yes. Confirmed. The Kravix Syndicate. A wave of angry whispers filled the council chamber. The Kravix Syndicate were pirates and slavers. The worst kind of criminals. They raided isolated outposts, stole valuable cargo, and sold captives to the black market. They were brutal and efficient, and they operated from hidden bases in contested space. We must send ships, said Representative Ilara of the Paxson Collective. Her voice was urgent. Those are innocent lives. Korath 7 is in contested territory, Morath said slowly. If we send military vessels there, we risk conflict with the Syndicate's backing forces. This could start a war. So we do nothing? Ilara's voice rose. We listen to them die? End quote. End quote. End quote. The council chamber fell silent. On the screen, the transmission from Korath 7 continued. The sounds were getting worse. A Velan voice, choked with tears, begged for mercy. A child screamed for their mother. We need time to consider the political implications, Morath said. He looked tired. We cannot rush into. The transmission cut off suddenly. For a long moment, there was only static. Then a new voice came through. It was rough and cruel, speaking in the harsh language of the Kravix. This station now belongs to the Syndicate. We have taken 37 prisoners, including 14 younglings. They will be sold to the highest bidder. Do not attempt to follow us, or they will die. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some species demanded action. Others counseled caution. Military analysts began calculating response times and risk factors. Diplomats started drafting strongly worded statements. Everyone had an opinion, but no one made a decision. The Galactic Council was very good at debating. They were not good at acting quickly, but the transmission had not only reached the council chambers, it had also traveled to human space. Captain G1 Park was drinking coffee in her quarters when the priority alert came through. She set down her cup and brought up the transmission on her screen. She listened to the whole thing. Her face remained calm, but her jaw tightened with each passing second. When the Kravix commander made his threat about the younglings, her hand curled into a fist. G1 had served in the Earth Alliance Navy for 15 years. She had seen combat in 3 different conflicts. She had made difficult decisions and lived with the consequences. But she had never, not once, ignored a distress call. She touched her communicator. "Bridge. This is the captain. Set course for Korath 7. Maximum speed." There was a pause. Then her first officer's voice came back. "Captain, that's outside our patrol zone. We would need authorization from—" "I'm authorizing it," G1 said. "That's an active distress call from civilians under attack. We're responding." 2. Understood, Captain. Setting course now." G1 stood and pulled on her uniform jacket. Her ship, the destroyer, Incheon's Blade, was not the biggest vessel in the fleet, but it was fast. And her crew was good. Very good. She walked onto the bridge 3 minutes later. The crew turned to look at her. They had all heard the transmission by now. It was broadcasting on open channels, spreading across the galaxy. "Time to Korath 7? G1 asked. 16 hours at maximum burn, her navigator reported. "Captain, I'm reading other human ships changing course too. Looks like we're not the only ones who heard that call." G1 allowed herself a small smile. Of course they weren't alone. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy. They were stubborn. They were reckless. They came from a death world where everything tried to kill them. And somehow, they had survived and thrived. Other species thought humans were strange, too emotional, too quick to act. But humans had one quality that the rest of the galaxy struggled to understand. When someone called for help, humans came running. "Open a channel to any human ships responding to the distress call," G1 ordered. "Let's coordinate our approach." 1. Within the hour, 6 human vessels had confirmed they were racing toward Korath 7, a cargo hauler that had dumped its load to gain speed, 2 frigates that had abandoned their patrol routes, a science vessel whose crew had voted unanimously to join the rescue, and 2 more destroyers whose captains had made the same decision as G1. The Galactic Council sent a priority message to all human vessels. It was very polite. It explained that the situation was complex, that there were political considerations, that rushing in without proper planning could make things worse. G1 read the message and deleted it. Her communications officer looked nervous. "Captain, if we do this without authorization, there could be consequences." "Court-martial, maybe. Then there will be consequences," G1 said simply. "But there are children being taken by slavers right now. I can live with a court-martial. I can't live with doing nothing." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Then, one by one, they nodded. The human fleet pushed their ships harder, burning fuel at dangerous rates, running their reactors hot. They didn't slow down. They didn't stop to debate. They didn't form committees or wait for permission. They just went. Behind them, the galaxy watched and wondered what would happen when these Deathworlders caught up to the Kravix Syndicate. The pirates had made a terrible mistake. They had hurt innocent people. They had taken children. And now humanity was coming for them. The hunt had begun. The Kravix Syndicate fleet jumped to hyperspace 12 minutes after destroying Research Station Korath 7. They left the station burning behind them, a broken shell tumbling through the Ice Moon's orbit. Warlord Threz stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Reaper. He was a massive creature, covered in thick scales and battle scars. His species, the Kravix, were known throughout the galaxy as pirates and raiders. They were strong, ruthless, and very good at taking what they wanted. "Cargo report," Threz growled. His second officer checked the display. 37 prisoners secured. 14 are younglings. We also took the research data on the crystalline organisms. It will sell well on the black market. End quote. Threz nodded with satisfaction. It had been an easy raid. The Velans had barely tried to resist, Soft species like them made the best targets. No weapons, no military training, just easy profit. Set course for the Shadowed Reach, he ordered. We'll sell the prisoners there and divide the credits. His crew cheered. The Shadowed Reach was their main base, a massive fortress built inside a hollow asteroid. It was hidden in contested space, where no government dared to challenge them. The Syndicate had held that fortress for 20 years, and it had never been threatened. Threz settled into his command chair. Another successful raid. In a few days, they would be rich, and those Velen scientists would be someone else's problem. He had no idea that 6 human ships were already on their trail. Captain G1 Park studied the tactical display on her bridge. Her ship had met up with the other 5 human vessels at the rendezvous point. Together, they made a small but determined fleet. The Kravix jumped to hyperspace from here, her tactical officer reported. Based on their ship class and the direction they were heading, we can predict their destination. Where? G1 asked. Most likely the Shadowed Reach. It's their main base. Intelligence reports say it's heavily defended. G1 nodded slowly. She knew about the Shadowed Reach. Every navy in the galaxy knew about it. The Kravix Fortress was a legend, a place where criminals operated with complete freedom. Many governments had talked about attacking it. None had actually tried. How long until we can intercept them? She asked. If we push our engines to the limit, we can catch them before they reach the fortress. Maybe. It will be close. Then we push the engines, G1 said. All ships, maximum burn. I want every bit of speed we can manage. Her chief engineer's voice came over the comm. Captain, if we run this hot for too long, we could damage the reactors. So, we'll damage the reactors, G1 replied. We'll fix them later. Right now, we have children who need help, and we're not letting them reach that fortress. The human fleet accelerated. Other species would have considered it reckless, even suicidal. Human ships were pushing beyond their safe operational limits. Crews were working triple shifts without complaint. Everyone knew the risks. Everyone agreed it was worth it. The galaxy watched through long-range sensors and couldn't believe what they were seeing. They're going to burn out their engines, a Zenthari admiral muttered as he studied the tracking data. They'll cripple their own fleet. They know that, his aide said quietly. They're doing it anyway. And Warlord Threz received the first report about the pursuing human ships 8 hours into their journey. He laughed when he heard it. Humans? Only 6 ships? He shook his head. Let them come. We have twice that many vessels, and we're almost to the fortress. Even if they catch us, they'll be too outnumbered to do anything. His second officer looked less certain. Sir, humans have a reputation. They don't fight like other species. They're Deathworlders. Threz waved a clawed hand dismissively. Yes, I've heard the stories. They're stubborn and hard to kill. But they're not invincible. Once we reach the fortress, they'll have to face our full fleet, plus the defense platforms. They're not that stupid. But the humans kept coming. They pushed their ships harder. They burned through fuel reserves that should have been saved for emergencies. They rotated their crews in shifts that would have exhausted any other species. But humans kept working, kept fighting their own exhaustion, kept driving forward. The gap between the fleets began to close. Threz stopped laughing. He watched the tactical display with growing unease. The human ships should have slowed down by now. They should have realized this was a losing chase. But they weren't slowing down. If anything, they were getting faster. How are they maintaining that speed? He demanded. Unknown, sir. Their engines should have failed by now. They're operating beyond any safe parameters. Threz felt something he hadn't experienced in years. A tiny flicker of worry. Increase our speed, he ordered. I want to reach the fortress before they catch us. His crew pushed their own ships harder. But Kravik's vessels were designed for raids, not endurance runs. The human ships, impossibly, were built tougher, They kept coming. On the bridge of the Incheon's blade, alarms were sounding. The reactor was running dangerously hot. The engines were shaking. Warning lights flashed across every console. Engineering reports the port engine is developing stress fractures, the first officer said. If we don't reduce speed, it could fail completely. G1 didn't hesitate. Reroute power from non-essential systems. Life support to minimum. Weapons to standby. Everything goes to the engines. Captain, we're closing the gap, G1 interrupted. We're going to catch them before they reach that fortress. Maintain speed. Her crew exchanged glances. Then, they followed orders. Because that's what humans did. When something mattered, they pushed past their limits. They ignored the warnings and the danger and the voice in their heads telling them to quit. The other human ships were doing the same thing. The cargo hauler was running on engines designed for slow, steady transport. But the crew had modified them on the fly, making changes that would horrify any safety inspector. The science vessel had dumped half its equipment into space to reduce weight. The frigates and destroyers were burning so hot that their hull temperatures were rising to dangerous levels. And still they came. The Galactic Council watched in amazement. Observer ships, from a dozen species, followed at a safe distance, recording everything. This is insane, a Paxson military analyst said. They're going to destroy their own fleet. They're going to catch the Kravix, her colleague replied. Look at the projections. At this rate, they'll intercept before the pirates reach the fortress. And then what? 6 damaged human ships against the entire Kravix fleet? And the fortress defenses? It's suicide. Maybe, the colleague said. But I don't think the humans care about the odds right now. He was right. Warlord Threz could see his fortress on the long-range sensors. The shadowed reach. Home and stronghold. Safety. He was going to make it, but the humans were right behind him now. Close enough that he could see their ship signatures clearly on his displays. Close enough that he could read their names. Incheon's Blade, New Shanghai, Lagos Pride, Mumbai Thunder, Sao Paulo Defender, Vancouver Spirit, Vancouver, Spirit, ships from all over Earth, united in one purpose. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet, his communications officer said nervously. Put it through, Threz ordered. A human woman's face appeared on the screen. She had dark hair tied back, sharp eyes, and an expression of absolute determination. Captain G1 Park, Kravix vessel, she said calmly. You are carrying hostages taken from Research Station Koreth 7. Release them immediately. Or, we will take them by force. Threz laughed, but it sounded forced even to his own ears. You're outnumbered and outgunned, human. Turn back now, or you'll all die. G1's expression didn't change. You hurt children. You killed innocent people. We're not turning back. The transmission ended. Threz stared at the blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew shifted uneasily. They had raided dozens of targets, fought countless battles, but something about the way that human captain had spoken made them nervous. She hadn't threatened, hadn't boasted. She had simply stated a fact. The human fleet entered weapons range of the Kravix fortress, and the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen when an unstoppable force met an immovable object. The shadowed reach was a fortress that had never fallen. Built inside a massive hollow asteroid, it bristled with weapons. Dozens of automated defense platforms orbited the structure like deadly moons. 20 Kravix warships patrolled the perimeter. Inside the asteroid itself, thousands of pirates and criminals made their home in a twisted city of metal and shadow. The Galactic Council had sent observer ships to watch the confrontation. They positioned themselves at a safe distance, sensors recording everything. Representatives from 24 species watched their displays in tense silence. The humans are actually attacking, Representative Morith whispered. 6 ships, against all of that. They won't last 5 minutes, another council member said. But they were wrong. The human fleet split up as they approached the fortress. It was a tactic that made no sense to the observers. Staying together would give them more combined firepower. Splitting up just made them easier targets. Captain G1 Park stood on her bridge, watching the tactical display. All ships, execute pattern Delta 7. Stay mobile. Stay unpredictable. Our job is to create chaos. Confirmed, came the replies from the other 5 ships. And remember, G1 added quietly, there are children in that fortress. Every shot we take, every decision we make, has to keep them safe. The Kravik's defense platforms opened fire first. Massive energy beams lanced through space, targeting the human ships. The observers expected to see the human fleet destroyed in seconds. Instead, the human ships moved. They dodged and weaved through the incoming fire with a speed and agility that seemed impossible. The cargo hauler, Vancouver Spirit, spun on its axis, barely avoiding a direct hit. The frigate, Lagos Pride, dropped suddenly, letting a beam pass overhead, then accelerated forward into a gap in the defense grid. How are they moving like that? A Zen 3 observer demanded. Those maneuvers should be impossible at combat speeds. Her aide checked the sensor data. They're pulling 8, sometimes 9 gravities in those turns. That should kill the pilots. The G-forces alone. Humans come from a Heath world. Another observer interrupted. Higher gravity than most species can tolerate. They can handle forces that would knock us unconscious. But to fly like that in combat, while under fire, with damaged engines. On the bridge of the Incheon's blade, G1 felt the pressure of the high G-turn pushing her into her chair. Around her, the crew strained against the forces, but no one complained. They had trained for this. Humans trained for conditions that other species considered torture. Weapons lock, her tactical officer called out. Defense Platform 7, fire. The destroyer's missiles streaked across space and slammed into the platform. It exploded in a bright flash. One threat down, but there were dozens more. Lieutenant Minho Choi piloted his fighter through the defensive grid with calm precision. He led a squadron of 12 human fighters that had launched from the destroyers. They were small, fast, and very hard to hit. Gold Squadron, on me, Minho called over the comm. We're going to draw their fire. Make yourselves annoying. His wingman, Lieutenant Sarah O'Brien, laughed. Annoying is what we do best. Well, I'm C. The fighters danced through the battle space, firing at targets of opportunity but mainly just being there. Being threats. Being problems that the Kraviks had to deal with. Every defense platform that turned to target the fighters was a platform that wasn't shooting at the larger ships. Warlord Threz watched the battle from his command center, deep inside the fortress. What he saw made no sense. The human ships should be dead. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and their ships were damaged from the chase. But they were winning. Not because they had better technology. Not because they had more ships. They were winning because they fought like nothing else in the galaxy. They took hits that should have destroyed them and kept fighting. They made split-second decisions that would take other species minutes to calculate. They worked together with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. And they never, ever stopped pressing forward. All ships, concentrate fire on the lead destroyer, Threz ordered. I want that ship destroyed now. 8 Kravik's warships turned their weapons on the Incheon's blade. Energy beams and missiles converged on G1's ship from multiple angles. Brace for impact, her first officer shouted. The destroyer's shields flared as the barrage hit. The ship shook violently. Consoles exploded. The lights flickered. Shields at 15%, the tactical officer reported through gritted teeth. Hull breach on deck 4. We can't take another hit like that. Then we don't give them another shot, G1 said. She looked at her navigator. Take us into the debris field from that destroyed platform. Use the wreckage for cover. Captain, that debris is unstable. If we collide with, Do it. The destroyer dove into the cloud of twisted metal and burning plasma. The Kravik's ships lost their target lock, their sensors confused by all the interference. The Incheon's blade disappeared into the chaos and emerged on the other side, right behind two Kravik's warships. Fire all weapons, G1 ordered. At point-blank range, the destroyer's guns tore into the pirate ships. One exploded immediately. The other tried to turn, but the human ship was already past it, accelerating toward the fortress itself. The observers couldn't believe what they were seeing. They're not trying to destroy the fortress, a Paxson analyst said slowly. They're trying to get inside it. That's suicide, her colleague protested. The interior is a maze. They'll be trapped. But the humans had a plan. Engineering officer Sarah O'Brien had been born on a space station. She had grown up around ships and computers and communication systems. When she wasn't flying fighters, she was one of the best hackers in the human fleet. And right now, she was inside a Kravik's computer system. I'm in their communications network, she reported over the fleet channel. Uploading virus package now. Should disrupt their coordination. Seconds later, the Kravik ships started experiencing problems. False target readings appeared on their displays. Communication channels filled with static. Automated systems began giving conflicting orders. It wasn't enough to stop them, but it was enough to slow them down, to create confusion, to make them hesitate. And when you're fighting humans, hesitation is fatal. The frigate Mumbai Thunder made its run at the fortress entrance. The massive hangar doors were closed, protected by an energy barrier. The frigate's captain, Commander Daejung Kim, aimed his ship at the barrier and fired every weapon he had. The barrier held, but it flickered. All ships, concentrate fire on the hangar entrance, G1 ordered. 6 human ships, 12 fighters, all turned their weapons on one point. The barrier flashed and sparked under the sustained assault. The Kraviks tried to reinforce it, but the virus in their systems was slowing their response. The barrier failed. Go, go, go! G1 shouted. The human ships streaked through the opening into the fortress interior. The fighters led the way, their sensors mapping the complex tunnel system. Behind them came the frigates and destroyers, their weapons ready. They were inside. Warlord Threz stood frozen in his command center. In 20 years, no one had breached the fortress. No one had even tried. Sir, the humans are inside the perimeter, his officer reported. They're heading for the detention level. Send all available forces, Threz snarled. Kill them all. But there was fear in his voice now. Because the humans had done the impossible. They had fought their way through defenses that were supposed to be impenetrable. They had taken damage that should have destroyed them and kept coming. And now they were inside his fortress, coming for the hostages, coming for the children. In the detention cells deep in the fortress, the Velen prisoners huddled together in terror. They had heard the sounds of battle echoing through the metal walls. Explosions, weapons, fire, screaming. A young Velen girl, no more than 6 years old, clung to her mother. I'm scared, she whispered. Her mother stroked her silver fur gently. Is someone coming to help us? The mother wanted to say yes, wanted to give her daughter hope. But she didn't believe help was coming. The galaxy had heard their distress call and done nothing. Then the sounds of battle grew closer, much closer, and a human voice, speaking in broken but understandable galactic common, echoed down the corridor. Hostages, stay down. We're here to get you out. The Velen mother felt her heart skip. Could it be? The door to their cell exploded inward. Smoke filled the corridor. Through it came figures in combat armor, moving fast, weapons ready. Human soldiers. They had come. They had actually come. Captain G1 Park stood in the corridor, her rifle ready, and looked at the frightened Velens. For just a moment, her expression softened. You're safe now, she said. We're taking you home. The young Velen girl looked up at the armored human and smiled. And deep in the fortress, Warlord Threz realized he had made a terrible mistake. He had hurt children, and humanity was about to show him what happened to monsters who prey on the innocent. The interior of the Kravix fortress was a nightmare of narrow corridors and ambush points. It was designed to trap invaders, to turn any attack into a deadly maze where the defenders held every advantage. But the humans moved through it like they owned it. Sergeant Heejin Kim led her Marine team down a corridor slick with coolant fluid. Her armor's sensors painted the space ahead in shades of green and red. 16 heat signatures around the next corner. Kravix pirates, waiting in ambush. Contact ahead, she whispered into her comm. 16 hostiles. Rules of engagement? Her corporal asked. Heijin thought about the scared Velen children they had just found. She thought about the bodies at the research station, the ones the Kravix had murdered in cold blood. Anyone who points a weapon at us, or the hostages, gets put down, she said flatly. No warnings, no second chances. Her team nodded. They felt the same way. The Kravix pirates thought they were ready. They had fought borders before, driven them back, or killed them. The narrow corridors made it impossible for large forces to maneuver. The defenders always won in the fortress interior, but they had never fought humans before. Heejin's team didn't charge around the corner into the ambush. Instead, they went through the wall. Breaching charges blasted through the thin metal partition. Before the Kravix could react, the Marines were in the corridor behind them, guns firing with precise accuracy. The ambush became a death trap, but for the wrong side. It was over in seconds. Tango down, Heejin reported. Corridor 4 clear. Moving to the next sector. All through the fortress, similar scenes played out. Human Marines adapted to every trap and obstacle with terrifying speed. When doors were sealed, they blasted new ones. When corridors were blocked, they found alternate routes through ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels. When the Kravix used hostages as shields, the humans switched to non-lethal weapons with perfect accuracy. The pirates learned something that would echo across the galaxy. Humans were persistence hunters from a death world. And when they were hunting to protect someone, they became something else entirely. They became nightmares. Warlord Threz watched his fortress being torn apart, section by section. How many humans are there? He demanded. Sensor readings are unclear, sir. Maybe 200 Marines, plus the ship crews. But they're everywhere at once. They move too fast. Threz's claws dug into his command chair. 200 soldiers should not be able to threaten his fortress. He had thousands of pirates, automated defenses, the terrain advantage. But the humans weren't following any rules, he understood. Release the war beasts, he ordered. Send them to the detention level. If we can't have the hostages, neither can they. His second officer hesitated. Sir, the war beasts don't discriminate. They'll kill everyone, including... Do it, Threats roared. Deep in the fortress's lower levels, cage doors opened. Massive creatures emerged, each one weighing over a ton, covered in armored plates and razor-sharp claws. The Kravix had bred them for one purpose: to kill anything that moved. 6 of them charged down the corridor toward the detention sector, roaring with hunger. They ran straight into Sergeant Minseo Kwan and his squad. Minseo was a quiet man who loved reading poetry and spent his leave time volunteering at animal shelters. But he was also a Marine who had grown up hunting in the mountains of Korea, and he knew exactly how to handle dangerous predators. War beasts incoming, he said calmly. Heavy weapons. Aim for the joints. They're armored, but not invulnerable. The Marines spread out, using the corridor walls for cover. When the beasts charged, they were ready. The fight was brutal. The creatures were strong and fast, but humans had been dealing with apex predators since before they had discovered fire. They knew how to find weaknesses, how to work together, how to bring down something bigger and stronger through coordination and smart tactics. 5 minutes later, 6 war beasts lay dead in the corridor. Threat neutralized, Minseo reported. Continuing to evacuation point. In the fortress command center, Warlord Threz stared at his displays in disbelief. His war beasts had never failed before. They were supposed to be unstoppable. "Sir, the humans are escorting the hostages to their ships," an officer reported. "We're losing control of the detention sector." Threz made a decision born of desperation and rage. "I'm going down there myself. Get me 20 of our best fighters. If the humans want the hostages so badly, they'll have to go through me." He grabbed his personal weapons and stormed out of the command center. Captain G1 Park was with the rescue team when the alert came through. "Captain, sensors are picking up a large force heading our way. Looks like Threz himself is coming." G1 looked at the Velen hostages huddled behind her marines. The children were terrified, but safe. The adults were injured, but alive. They had rescued all 37 prisoners. Now they just had to get them out. "How long until we reach the ships?" she asked. 3 more corridors. Then we're at the hangar where we docked. Then we move fast. Marines, defensive formation. Protect the civilians at all costs." The rescue group moved quickly through the fortress. The Velens tried to keep up, but they were weak from days of captivity. The human Marines carried the youngest children, supported the injured adults, kept everyone moving. Threz and his fighters appeared at the far end of the corridor. "There!" the warlord roared. "Kill the humans! Take back the prisoners!" His fighters charged forward, weapons blazing. The human Marines returned fire while shielding the Velens with their own bodies. Rounds pinged off armor. Energy beams scorched the walls. It was chaos and violence in a confined space. But the humans held their ground. G1 shot a pirate who got too close, then grabbed a Velen youngling who had stumbled. She pulled the child behind her and kept firing with one hand. "Keep moving," she shouted. "Don't stop." Threz fought his way forward. He was a massive warrior, and his personal shields deflected most of the human weapons. He grabbed one Marine and threw him against the wall, with bone-crushing force. Then Sergeant Haejin Kim stepped in front of him. She was smaller than him by half. Her armor was dented and scorched from the fighting. But when she looked up at the warlord, her eyes held no fear. "You hurt children," she said quietly. Threz laughed. "Weak human. You think you can stop me?" Haejin's response was to shoot out his shield generator with perfect accuracy. Then she moved. Humans had trained in hand-to-hand combat for thousands of years. They had dozens of martial arts, hundreds of techniques, and Haejin had studied them all. She was faster than Threz expected, stronger than he anticipated. She used his size against him, redirecting his attacks, striking at weak points he didn't know he had. When he tried to grab her, she broke 2 of his fingers. When he swung his weapon, she disarmed him. When he roared in rage, she put him on the ground. "I asked you a question," Haejin said, her knee on his chest, her gun pointed at his head. "You hurt children. Did you really think no one would come for them?" Threz stared up at her. Around them, his fighters were being taken down by the other Marines. The battle was lost. His fortress was lost. "The galaxy doesn't care about one research station," he gasped. "The Council did nothing." "The Council did nothing," Haejin agreed. She hit him once, hard enough to knock him unconscious. "Marines, fall back to the ships. Hostages first, always." The rescue group reached the hangar. The human ships waited there, damaged but functional, ready to evacuate everyone. The Velen hostages were hurried aboard, treated gently by the same humans who had just fought like demons. G1 was the last to board the Incheon's blade. She looked back at the fortress, at the chaos they had created. "Captain, we're ready to depart," her first officer said. "Not yet," G1 replied. "Open a channel. Broadcast to the entire fortress and to the observer ships." When the channel opened, she spoke calmly and clearly. "Kravik Syndicate. This is Captain Park of the Earth Alliance Navy. We came for the hostages. We have them. We're leaving now. But understand this. If you ever attack civilians again, if you ever harm children again, we will come back. And next time, We won't leave anything standing. Quote. She paused, letting that sink in. You called us weak. You called us emotional. You thought we were easy targets. Her voice hardened. You were wrong. Humanity will not tolerate predators who hunt the innocent. Remember that. The transmission ended. The human fleet pulled away from the fortress, carrying the rescued Velans to safety. Behind them, the Kravik Syndicate's power was broken. Their fortress was damaged. Their leader was beaten. And throughout the galaxy, species that had watched the battle were reconsidering everything they thought they knew about humanity, because they had seen what humans were capable of when they were truly angry. And it was terrifying. The medical bay of the Incheon's Blade was crowded with Velan refugees. Human medics moved between them, treating injuries with gentle hands and soft voices. Captain Ji-won Park watched from the doorway. The Velans looked so small, so fragile. Their silver fur was matted with dirt and blood. Their large eyes held memories of horror that would take years to fade. But they were alive, all 37 of them. Every single hostage had been recovered. A young Velan girl noticed Ji-won and ran over to her. The child wrapped her small arms around the captain's leg and held on tight. Thank you, the girl whispered. Thank you for coming. Ji-won knelt down to the child's level. She had faced pirates and war beasts and explosions without flinching, but the gratitude in this little girl's eyes made her throat tight. We'll always come, Ji-won said softly. When someone calls for help, humans will answer. Always. Ji-won, the girl's mother approached, supporting herself on a crutch. She was injured, but healing. Captain Park, my name is Valara. I was the lead researcher at Station Korath 7. Her voice broke. You saved us. The galaxy abandoned us. But you came. We did what anyone should have done. Ji-won said, standing. We're just sorry we couldn't get there sooner. G-17. G-17. We did what anyone should have done. G-17. We're just sorry we couldn't get there sooner. Valara shook her head. The Galactic Council debated for hours. They talked about politics and risks and consequences. You acted. You risked everything to save people you had never met. She looked around at the human crew, working tirelessly to help the refugees. Why? Ji-won thought about it. How could she explain humanity's nature to someone from a species that had never known war, never needed weapons, never developed a warrior culture? Because it was the right thing to do, she said finally. We heard children screaming for help. What else could we do? Most species would have done nothing, Valara said quietly. Self-preservation is logical. What you did was not logical. No, Ji-won agreed. It wasn't. But humanity has never been very good at logic when innocent lives are at stake. The Incheon's Blade and the rest of the human fleet were making their way back to civilized space. The journey was slow because their ships were heavily damaged. The engines were running on backup power. Several reactors needed complete rebuilds. The cargo hauler, Vancouver Spirit, was barely holding together, but no one complained. The crews worked around the clock, keeping their damaged ships operational, and they treated the Velan refugees like precious cargo, making sure everyone was comfortable, fed, and safe. In the galley, Corporal David Chen was teaching young Velan children a simple card game. The younglings laughed as they played, starting to forget their fear. Nearby, Sergeant Haijin Kim was helping an elderly Velan researcher repair his glasses. The old scientist had lost them during the attack, and Haijin had found a spare pair in the ship's supply room. This was the other side of humanity, the side that made terrible warriors but gentle protectors. On the bridge, G1 received a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. She almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won out. The message was formal and carefully worded. The Council acknowledged the successful rescue operation. They praised the human fleet's courage and skill. They also noted that the unauthorized military action in contested space could have serious diplomatic consequences. G1 read it twice, then showed it to her first officer. "They're threatening consequences?" he said in disbelief. "We saved lives. They refused to save, and now they're upset about it? Politics," G1 said with a tired smile. "The council doesn't like being shown up. We made them look bad by doing what they wouldn't. What are you going to tell them?" G1 thought for a moment, then typed a response. "Dear Council representatives, the hostages are safe. That's all that matters. If you want to discuss consequences, come, find us. Captain Park, out." She sent it, and turned back to monitoring her ship's systems. 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at the Velen homeworld. The planet was beautiful, covered in silver forests and crystal-clear oceans. Cities gleamed in the sunlight, all curves and organic shapes. This was a world that had never known war, never needed weapons, never built defenses. When the Velen government heard that their people were coming home, they organized a massive welcome. Millions gathered at the spaceport as the human ships landed. The Velens emerged from the ships to see their entire world celebrating their return. Families reunited with tears and laughter. Children ran to their relatives. Adults embraced in joy. And the humans stood quietly to the side, watching. They didn't seek recognition, didn't ask for rewards. They just helped unload supplies, assisted the injured, and made sure every Velen got home safely. The Velen ambassador, a dignified elderly female named Thesara, approached Captain Park. Her eyes were wet with tears. "We owe you a debt we can never repay," she said. "You risked everything for us." "You don't owe us anything," G1 replied. "We just did what needed to be done." "The Galactic Council did nothing," Thesara said, her voice hardening. "They heard our screams and debated. They saw our children taken and formed committees. We will remember that." She turned to address the massive crowd gathered at the spaceport. Her voice was amplified, so everyone could hear. Our people called into the void expecting silence. The galaxy, which claims to value peace and cooperation, abandoned us in our darkest hour. But humanity heard our call. They came across the stars at full speed. They fought impossible odds. They risked their lives and ships to save us. The crowd listened in absolute silence. Today, I am announcing that the Velen people are entering a formal alliance with humanity. We will share our medical knowledge, our research, everything we have. Because when everyone else turned away, humans came running toward danger to protect the innocent. The crowd erupted in cheers, millions of Velens showing their gratitude. G1 felt uncomfortable with all the attention. She was a naval captain, not a diplomat. She had just done her job, but Thesara wasn't finished. She looked directly at G1 and said, "You told Warlord Threz that humans will not tolerate predators who hunt the innocent. That message has spread across the galaxy. Every species heard it. Every pirate and slaver knows it now." "Good," G1 said simply. "Captain, do you understand what you've done? You've changed galactic politics forever. Species are reconsidering their defense policies. Predatory groups are retreating. The balance of power is shifting. We just rescued some civilians," G1 protested. "No," Thesara said gently. "You showed the galaxy that someone will answer when innocents cry for help. You proved that compassion backed by force is stronger than any fleet. You reminded everyone that there are still species who will do the right thing, even when it's dangerous, even when it's not logical." She paused, then added, "You gave hope to every peaceful species in the galaxy, and you put fear into every predator's heart. That is what you've done." The human fleet stayed on the Velen homeworld for 3 days while their ships were repaired. The Velens insisted on helping, using their advanced medical technology to heal injured crew members, their engineering knowledge to repair damaged systems. The two species worked together naturally. The Velans were gentle and peaceful, but they were also brilliant scientists and skilled engineers. The humans were warriors, but they were also kind, patient, and good at working with others. It was the beginning of a friendship that would last for generations. On the last day, before the human fleet departed, young Velan children gathered to say goodbye. They had made drawings for the human crew members who had saved them, pictures of ships and stars and humans standing tall. The Velan girl who had hugged G1 gave her a small crystal pendant. "This is from our world," she said. "So you remember us." "I could never forget you," G1 said, accepting the gift. "Any of you." As the human ships prepared to leave, Ambassador Thesara made one final broadcast. It was transmitted across the entire galaxy, to every species, every government, every individual with access to communication systems. "We called for help when pirates attacked our research station. The Galactic Council, which claims to protect all species, did nothing. They debated, while our people died. They considered politics while our children were taken." Her voice grew stronger, but humanity heard our call. 6 human ships abandoned their orders, pushed their vessels beyond safe limits, and fought impossible odds to save us. They asked for nothing in return. They wanted no payment, no glory. They simply refused to let innocent people suffer. The galaxy listened. Other species call humans Deathworlders and barbarians. They fear human emotion and human impulsiveness. But we Velans see the truth. Humanity's emotion is their strength. Their refusal to be logical when lives are at stake makes them heroes. Their willingness to charge into danger for strangers makes them the best of us all. Thesara's final words echoed across 1,000 worlds. The Velan people stand with humanity. And we say this to every peaceful species watching. If you are in danger, if you are threatened, if you need help, call out. Because somewhere in the galaxy, a human will hear you, and they will come running. The transmission ended. Captain G1 Park stood on her bridge as the Incheon's blade left orbit. The repairs were complete. Her crew was tired but proud. The mission was a success. "Captain, we're receiving messages," her communications officer said. "A lot of messages." "From who?" "Everyone. Other species thanking us. Human ships asking to join future rescue missions. Even some governments requesting defense treaties." G1 smiled. "Forward the important ones to command. They can deal with the politics. And the rest? Tell them the truth. When someone needs help, humans will be there." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading home. Behind them, the galaxy was changing. The attack on the Kravix fortress had sent shockwaves through every civilization. Predatory groups were retreating. Peaceful species were finding their courage. And humanity had proven something that would be remembered forever. They had proven that sometimes the right thing to do is also the dangerous thing. That courage matters more than calculation. That protecting the innocent is worth any risk. The distress call from Research Station Koreith 7 had ignited humanity's fury, and the galaxy would never be the same. Far away, on dozens of worlds, in hundreds of cities, beings who had been afraid found hope. Children who had been threatened found protection. The weak discovered they had defenders, because humanity had answered a call for help, and the message was clear. Call out into the void, and somewhere, a human will hear you, and they will come.